The first presentation is by Professor Artur Badyda, and this is a state-of-the-art lecture, Technical Aspects of Air Pollution Evaluation and the Significance for Health Effects Assessment. Artur, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank you very much, the organizers, for inviting me to this conference, Professor Marek Reiser. It's my pleasure to be present for the first time at this conference. I would like to tell you a few words about the general problem of air quality and how this might be important from the point of view of assessment of the health effects. Generally, as we already have seen on previous presentations, we know that poor air quality is a huge global problem, and the World Health Organization admits that it is actually one of the most important environmental threats to our health. Of course, the situation in terms of air quality around the world is not the same. So we have regions where the problem is really huge, and the regions where there are only slightly exceedances of the WHO guidelines. Actually, the European Union, Europe is rather on this brighter side of this problem. So the Asian or Middle East or South American countries are much more touched by the air quality problem. But nevertheless, almost the entire global population lives in the conditions where the WHO guidelines regarding the air quality are not met. That is also why the World Health Organization estimates that in a global scale, over 4 million people die prematurely because of the polluted ambient air. But if we add to this number also people exposed to the household air pollutants, this number raises to almost 7 million premature deaths a year. I mentioned that over the world the situation is different, and in Europe in general the situation is relatively good. Poland was in the last decades among the countries rather with poor air quality. So especially when comparing with the other European Union countries, we have really huge problems with the air quality. In Poland, this problem is mainly caused by the emissions from the municipal and household sector and the road transportation. When we see into the report of the European Environment Agency from this year, so the report about the air quality in Europe, we can see that depending on the air pollutants, Poland is higher or lower in the ranking of most polluted countries. So starting from the nitrogen dioxide, which is the typical air pollutant for transportation, we are at the 17th out of 27 European Union countries, or on the 17th place. But this is the rank which is growing. So actually growing, it means that we have lower place in this ranking, maybe not year by year, but decade by decade. There is also the rising problem with tropospheric ozone, in the concentrations of which we are now on the 9th place in the European Union, and a huge problem with particulate matter. Although in the last years our situation a bit improved, so we were usually on the first or the second place of the most polluted countries according to the PM concentrations. Now we are on the 6th place in case of the PM10, so the so-called coarse particles, and on the 4th place when talking about PM2.5, so there's more tiny particles. But what is still a very important and huge problem, these are the very high concentrations of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. indicated by benzopyrene, which is a well-known carcinogen, and we have definitely the highest concentrations of this pollutant in the whole European Union, as we can see on this graph here on the slide. So there are plenty of sources of air pollution. Of course, there are anthropogenic and also natural sources. So we as humans, from our activities, influence the air quality by mostly incinerating different kind of fuels. So the heating in our homes, industry, energy sector, transportation, all of these sources emit air pollutants. Of course, there are, as I mentioned, natural sources, like, for example, volcanoes, or which is something of raising importance. These are the wildfires. This is the change we observe actually for a couple of years because of climate changes. So there is a more common problem of wildfires. In Poland, if I may focus on this country, the problem, as I mentioned, is caused mainly by two reasons. So the heating purpose, so heating our homes, and transportation. So the so-called municipal and household sector is in Poland responsible for definitely for the majority of emission of air pollutants, especially these pollutants which are more harmful for our health. So this is particulate matter, up to over 80% of total PM2.5 emission, about 3/3 of the total emission of carbon monoxide, and almost the entire emission of benzopyrene is caused by burning fossil fuels, mainly coal and wood, in our homes. Actually, the situation is a bit better than it was. So in the last 10 years, we observed the improvement of the situation because our authorities undertook some steps to decrease the percentage of households where solid fuels are used. And that's why we observed a decline in the share of households using solid fuels from a bit more than 80% to about 60% at the moment. But still, up to half of all of the households in Poland still use very old heat sources. So the coal stoves, coal boilers, which are responsible for emission of harmful air pollutants. So it is estimated that up to 3 million of coal boilers, coal stoves need to be replaced by the newer installations within actually the next couple of years. So the second problem, actually, as I mentioned, the problem in the household sector, it is rather a problem which will be decreasing. So we started decreasing the problem, and hopefully it will continue to be decreasing. But completely the opposite situation we observe in case of transportation. So there are over 30 million of cars registered in Poland, and when we calculate this number to the population, so when we show the number of cars per 1,000 or 100,000 inhabitants, we have the highest number of cars per population in the whole European Union. The problem is mainly seen in the big cities, where, like in Warsaw or in Krakow, where this is now the most important predominant source of air pollutants emission. It is responsible mainly for the emission of nitrogen oxides. About 40% of the total emission comes from road transportation, and black carbon, it means soot, so around 1/3 of the total emission of soot comes from cars. There is also an important emission of some heavy metals like copper, like zinc, like chromium, which is also emitted from road transportation. So just to give you the broad overview of the situation now, this is This is the illustration of the concentrations of PM10 from the last European Environment Agency report about the air quality. So we can see that the situation is not bad. However, in Eastern Europe is worse than in Western Europe. And definitely the southern European countries, not only the European Union countries like Turkey or Balkan countries, they definitely have the problem at the moment, the higher problem than we have. Similar situation is in the case of the PM 2.5. And what I mentioned at the beginning, a very huge problem with, and still unsolved problem of benzopyrene, so the carcinogen from the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon group. We have definitely the highest concentration in the whole European Union. Better situation in terms of nitrogen oxides, and a bit better but worsening situation in case of tropospheric ozone. It is also the reason of increasing number of cars on our streets, because ozone is a secondary pollutant which comes from the chemical reactions, photochemical reactions of nitrogen oxides, and because of the climate changes. So what I would like to highlight is also meeting the guidelines. So the current European Union guidelines are generally met in most of the locations. However, the European Commission introduced last year the new Ambient Air Quality Directive, which will come in force by 2030. And according to these new regulations, there are definitely less locations where the guidelines are met, that the limits are met. But what is very symptomatic is that the guidelines recommended by the World Health Organization are met only in, especially in case of PM 2.5 and ozone, only in very, very small number of places where the air quality is monitored in the whole European Union. So there is only 8% in terms of, in case of PM 2.5, and only 2% of locations in case of ozone. So just to show you also the situation in Poland, each of these blue bars, these are the air quality monitoring stations in Poland. The red line is the current European Union limit value, so the level which in theory should not be exceeded. And as we can see, there are no exceedances in Poland in PM10 concentrations. However, when the new guidelines, when the new legal requirements will come into force, we will not meet them in most of the locations. About, I think that 3/3 of the locations will not meet the new limit values, and there is only there are only a few locations where the WHO guidelines are met. Similar situation is in the case of PM 2.5. But definitely the huge problem is when talking about benzopyrene. So these, not only the WHO guidelines, which are not met in any location in Poland, but also the current legal regulations and the future legal regulations are not met in most of the locations. However, the situation also improved. Today, we notice the levels at the so not exceeding 10 nanograms per cubic meter, and in previous years there were locations in Poland, especially in the Silesia region, both upper and lower Silesia, where the concentrations reached the levels of almost 30 nanograms per cubic meter, so enormously high. The situation in case of nitrogen oxides is better. However, when new regulations will be introduced, there will also be especially big cities where the new regulations will not be met, and we are also far away from meeting the WHO guidelines. Actually, why this is important from the health point of view. This is something what was already mentioned in many of the previous presentations. So first of all, what I would like to emphasize is that air pollutants is something what is almost ubiquitous, and we have no influence on the air we breathe. So we have to breathe the air that is currently in the place where we stay. Generally, the pollutants are found both in the outdoor and the indoor air. And the problem is not only the physical shape and physical dimension of the particles, but also the chemical composition. So there are plenty of pollutants, including already mentioned polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons or volatile organic compounds, or heavy metals, which are absorbed on the surface of particles, and we can inhale them when breathing the polluted air. So we can inhale them, and most of them we not only inhale, but they can easily access the circulatory system, so especially those most tiny particles. Yes? So generally, we don't see these particles which we breathe, so especially those which are respirable. So even if we see a cloud of smoke from the car or from the chimney of an industry or of a house, we can see only these bigger particles, but we can be pretty sure that among them there are also these small, tiny particles which can easily enter our airways, our lungs, our alveoli, and the circulatory system, and from the circulatory system, almost the entire organism, including also cerebral vessels. So the problem causes premature deaths, and as I mentioned at the beginning, so over 4 million people die prematurely globally. In the European Union, it is over 300,000 of premature deaths, and in Poland, around 40,000 people. So 40,000 people in this country die prematurely because of breathing polluted air. Only these three most important pollutants, like PM2.5, nitrogen dioxide, and ozone. This also causes the loss of our years of life. Almost 2,000 years of life in the group of 100,000 inhabitants are lost in Poland because of breathing polluted air. And the situation in the European Union is worse only in Romania and Bulgaria. This is something what I don't have to definitely describe in the group of cardiologists, because I'm pretty sure you have a wide knowledge, much more than I have, about the influence of air pollutants on cardiovascular diseases. But what we can see is that there is a huge influence, much bigger influence on the risk and the number of cardiovascular diseases than on respiratory diseases, which I deal with mostly. Most of the disability-adjusted life years, lost years, are attributed to ischemic heart disease, so the cardiovascular diseases, and cerebrovascular diseases. And this is also confirmed by the Global Burden of Disease study. Actually, this is the situation for Poland. We can see that the predominant number of DALYs are attributed to cardiovascular diseases, and then respiratory diseases and cancers. So just to summarize my message, I would like to highlight that the air pollution in Poland still remains a significant problem and still influences the human health. However, the situation is improving. So we observe the improvement of this situation, especially in the last 10 and maybe more in the last 5 5 years, what is very visible in this city where we are now, so in Kraków. But although the situation is improving, we still have to do a lot to improve the air quality so as to meet the guidelines from the World Health Organization. So generally, the levels of these most serious pollutants, these pollutants which have most serious health negative influence, they are definitely too high. They do not meet the WHO guidelines. This is caused mostly by the combustion of fuels. So the only solution to definitely cut this problem would be to eliminate these sources of pollutants. So in the short term, we can use some protective measures, like, for example, the air purifiers, which were mentioned before the break. But if we would like to solve the problem, only the elimination of sources will be the solution. And just at the end, I would like to show you the situation in Poland over the last 20 years. This is the last slide. This right slide you have already seen. However, I have changed the scale of the x-axis so as to compare it with the situation from 2005. So on the left graph, the first bar is the concentration of PM10 in Kraków. It is twice as much as the limit value and almost nine times higher than the recommended WHO guideline. And the situation today is completely different. So we meet the limit values, and the situation definitely improved, but we cannot stop now. We cannot stop improving the situation because the new regulation will appear soon, and we are still above the air quality guidelines recommended by the WHO. So hopefully we will manage to do it. Thank you very much for your attention.